This video will be a complete guide of the Scotch Gambit, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4. Instead of recapturing the pawn immediately, playing the move bishop to c4, and saying that if black tries to hold on to this pawn, you're going to be able to attack, and you're going to see this in today's video. And if they instead give away the pawn, well, now you have an extra piece in the attack anyways. So regardless of what they choose, it's good for this bishop to be on c4. Now, there's really four popular moves. These are also the four best moves. So bishop b4 check, very natural, giving a check here. There's the move bishop to c5, trying to defend and hold on to the pawn. The move bishop to e7, simply trying to get by and try to castle, give away this pawn back and say, let's just have a safe position and not let white attack. And then there's the move knight f6, counterattacking the center, obviously a very natural move. Let's begin with the check. Now, after the check, you play the move c3 here. And after they take, you take back with the pawn. And it might seem like they just traded the pawn that you were supposed to capture, so isn't this bad for you? But the reality is it isn't, because you won some tempo because they had to move their bishop, and now you can continue by attacking. So castling, getting your king safe, and they have a lot of work for castling, because after knight f6, well, then you start with e5, starting to attack. And there's a couple of ways to go about this. As black, the best move is d5, but even this isn't so good after the move bishop b5. Let's say they go knight to e4, now you go queen a4, attacking the bishop, attacking the knight on c6 again. So after bishop e6, takes, you're regaining the material, you have a central queen, you have beautiful ideas to attack in the future, so knight c5, bishop to g5, and you can see that you're the one dominating here after a move like queen to c8. So the point is, if they go ahead into this line, after knight f6 trying to castle, try to kick away their knight, and if they don't go for d5, let's say they go knight g4 instead, well, that's, even better, because after bishop g4, let's say f6 takes, knight takes, rook e1 check, the king has to move, you're dominating this position here with this diagonal here because they've moved the f-pawn, so the king can't really ever get safe. And actually, there's a funny line I'll show. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight to d2, going knight to e4, then going g3, continuing to harass the queen, knight to g5. Let's say they're just trying to develop and get the rook into the game, but then queen d5 comes, threatening checkmate here. Best move is knight d8. You can take the bishop, but funnily enough, there's an even better move, knight to e5 here. And after they take, rook takes e5, and it's actually just forced mate. So for example, after a6, there's the forced mate, knight h7 check. If they take with the rook, queen g8 is checkmate. If they take with the queen, queen c5, checkmate. So a beautiful idea here, and of course you're not going to be able to memorize this whole thing, but just memorize the idea that with the bishop on this diagonal, if they try to hold on to the pawn and trade it away, you're going to use that time to develop your pieces as actively as you can and continue to harass this king, and good things will happen to you, essentially, is the idea here. So that's kind of what happens if they go ahead and play, going back here, bishop to b4 check. Alternatively, they can go for bishop to e7. And the idea with bishop to e7 is saying, take back the pawn, go for it. But after you take back the pawn, I'm going to look to castle quickly, get out of danger, and just have a decent game. And this is essentially what happens. You can take the pawn immediately, or you can castle first, but eventually you're going to take the pawn, develop your pieces, and, say that, this is a pretty equal position. You both have good pieces out, you both have your king castled and safe. It's a game that any person, really has chances here. So, bishop e7 is a pretty sad response to see, admittedly, because you're not going to get that fun attacking ideas like you just saw after bishop b4, but you still have a perfectly fine position and nothing to complain about after the opening. Bishop c5, let's look at that next. Now you can play the move c3, which again is a bit weird because it seems like after d takes, you're giving back the material, you're supposed to win this pawn, but as you just saw, because I accidentally revealed it, bishop takes f7 is a beautiful tactical idea, winning the pawn, but even more than that, just harassing this king, making it move, weakening, diagonals here, and just a really beautiful idea. And if they take, well, now you're totally winning here. And if they don't take, you can take back, you can castle, you've regained the material, and you have a crushing position with much more activity for your pieces. And so, again, if they go bishop c5, c3, if they take, you have this beautiful bishop takes f7, and if they don't take, knight f6, for example, well, then you can take, and even if they give a check, and let's say they win the pawn on e4, eventually you're gonna be able to castle, and after they take, and they castle, for example, even though they're up a pawn here, you have more development, and visually it shows that you have a better position, because after d5, for example, knight e7, d6, hammering in that pawn, you don't even have to take immediately. So like rook e1, let's say they try to fianchetto their bishop because it's clear they're not getting it out this way. So b6 comes, but now you take, the knight's attacked, there's weaknesses along this diagonal. I mean, you're in a very, very dominating position here. And so kind of the ideas that you've seen so far is that you're either going to win the pawn back or have some really crushing attacks. However, we haven't looked at this move knight f6 yet, targeting the pawn on e4. But here you can simply castle, and similar to what happens in some Italian variations, if they take the pawn, you have rook e1, and this is just too much of an attack for black to deal with. So let's say they go f5, then you could just take, preparing to go f3. So for example, after takes, f3 is a threat. This diagonal's opened. There's also other threats. For example, a6, let's say, you can go queen e5 and then take on f5. There's still pressure here. Pressure now on f7 as well. The bishop, again, can still come into the game. I mean, this is a harmonious position for you with all of your pieces in the game, and your king here safe, while black can't say the same thing for their king. And so ultimately, they can't get too greedy. They can't try to hold on to their pawn. They can't try to trade away their pawn, and they can't try to win other pawns, because in all three of those scenarios, your extra piece development is going to win back a lot more than that one pawn. You're going to win back a ton of material and have a dominating position. So ultimately, black's best way is to adapt some very passive system, castle, and just go for equality. And the best scenario for you is that they don't do that, and you end up with some great attacking chances. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.